Hello and welcome to the Cloud Security Alliance Zero Trust Summit 2025. We've been doing this for several years. It's become quite a tradition towards the end of the year, November, December, to provide you sort of our view of zero trust as an important principle, where it's at, where it's going, and how you can use this philosophy to help secure your organization and think very broadly about how we can have a very secure future with all of the technology changes we're having. And it's a great 2 days, great sessions. So I'm Jim Reavis. I'm the CEO of Cloud Security Alliance, and I'm just delighted to be here. As I do some of these openings or closings, I go put together some notes of things that I think are very important points that I want to get across. And I actually looked to the agenda and the speakers, and I was just so happy to see that just everything that I wanted to talk about is actually addressed in some way or another with either a full presentation or a panel. So you have some great speakers. I know coming up after me is going to be Chase Cunningham, who's Dr. Zero Trust. We've always gone to the experts that actually have developed this to a great degree. We had John Kindervag, who was key on actually developing our whole Zero Trust Advancement Center and all the work we've done. So I did want to share just a few thoughts that I have. And, we are in this biggest technology shift of all time. I think the biggest technology trend ever. I don't get a lot of pushback on that. And things are moving so quickly. It's how quickly we're seeing like cycling of things is just amazing. And so there's a lot of talk as we think about how quickly things are moving and in how AI is just transforming the world, about this idea of going back to first principles. What I mean by that is in our context is we've seen this evolution where we get more and more specific about creating new names, new acronyms for very specific technologies. And I'm not knocking that at all. I think it's actually a very useful thing for you to understand, oh, this technology that I'm thinking about buying or implementing in my organization, CNAP, something like that, CIEM, that I understand what the developers intended for it to do. And so I can kind of use this as a puzzle piece into my overall solution. So I'm not knocking that, but I think there's this real thought that as we see really disruptive technologies changing how we think about basically everything, how we think about our business, definitely how we think about information security management systems and programs, that the idea of going back to first principles is gaining a lot of traction. And I'm certainly a believer in that. So first principles, you could think of this as, hey, let's go back to looking at physics. Let's go back and looking at the mathematics behind what we're doing. And in cybersecurity, maybe let's think about what the risks are and the rewards. And let's go back and let's recast maybe our program in something that's really related to understanding what are likely risks, what are the vulnerabilities, how do we think about the malicious attackers and how they might be changing? And in understanding those things, we are hopefully be able to put together a program that is going to be as future-proof as possible. It's going to be dynamic. It's going to evolve with as we learn about new things. And so I believe that makes a lot of sense. And as Cloud Security Alliance has sort of grown over the 17 years almost in existence, that we've sort of organized ourselves around some key areas that we're working on. Cloud, obviously, AI, generative AI is key focus now for the next few years. And zero trust is also just a very important pillar to Cloud Security Alliance. And I think it's just this key first principle for us to think about the cybersecurity future. And I can't really overplay to myself like the significance of it. So we think about zero trust. We think about this idea that we can't trust anything, that anything can be breached. And because anything can be breached, we have to understand how we can sort of put together technologies in a way that we can really have confidence in them. When you go think about all of the things that are happening in the world right now, I wanted to just for my own notes, make sure that we're thinking about these things. I think zero trust is going to only have increasing relevance. And I've said it before, things like it's the future blueprint for the architecture of the internet and where it's going. And to a large degree, we've already put in a lot of those pieces. There's a lot more work to do. It's never going to be done. But I think for what we see ahead of us for the next 2 to 5 years, I can see how zero trust is going to be something that's just so important to all of us. An area I think about in Cloud Security Alliance, just so you know, in 2026, one of the themes, and I've talked about it before, is securing the agentic control plane is going to be a big part of how we do things. And artificial intelligence gains a lot of its ROI, the benefits, the productivity gains by being agentic, by giving the technology systems agency autonomy to how they operate. And automation is just a big part of what we're trying to accomplish. So when I think about that, and there's this term that I've been using recently that someone shared with me, is we've always talked about least privilege, and with moving from deterministic to these AI systems that are predictive in nature, the idea of least autonomy is actually going to be something that's going to be part of this. And I think that just absolutely fits in zero trust. So how we think about agentic, and we're going to start needing to do work on physical AI, I think is sort of the term of art now for that. And to me, that's really important, that we understand that the physical devices, the kinetic action that systems can do, is certainly going to be a big part of how the world transforms, and certainly creates a lot of risks with that. And this is something that we are definitely going to apply zero trust principles. If we're talking about humanoid robots and things like that, we are certainly going to make sure that this least autonomy, least privilege sorts of concepts are crucially important as they interact with human beings and families and everything else. So, and I know I'm talking a little bit in the future here, but we got to start some of that work. And really, a lot of that is based on agentic, which a lot of organizations are trying to do right now. So resilience is another key theme that we talk about. We've had a few outages. I've been the victim of an outage. I got stranded at an airport recently because of an IT outage. And resilience is something that's so important. And there's a lot more work, and even a lot of this is getting institutionalized in regulations and governance to make sure that we have organizational resilience, technology resilience, resilient people as well. And this is something that, as systems are able to do better and better jobs of attacking us through phishing and things like that, and ransomware as it's evolved into extortionware and so many other very critical existential threats to organizations, that resilience is more and more important. We've got to defeat the outages causing an organization that sort of stress, and we've got to be able to survive those. Survivability is critically important. And again, I think zero trust, if you assume those things will happen, which is key part of zero trust, then you're going to have a lot more success. So I don't know if you've been a victim of any of these, but certainly you've seen on social media and other things that the improvement of deep fakes today from a year ago, even 6 months ago, is incredible. And you're also seeing this sort of understanding of what level of guardrails are the frontier model systems, what's the appropriate side that we need to be on, because certainly you got to treat adults like adults, you have to treat kids like kids, but we're going to see a lot more with both the technology and the different models that are going to sort of lean towards, hey, we'll let adults do what they should be allowed to do. You're just going to see a proliferation of deep fakes. And again, thinking about that from a zero trust perspective, identity is so important. I know we've got some good identity sessions here at this summit, but really us understanding identity of everything from people, from systems, data, applications, non-human identities, real agentic identities. What does that actually mean? There's going to be so much work we need to do there. And I think we're going to be pretty close to a point where almost everyone's going to understand you have to assume just about everything you see is fake. And then you got to go look at what is the checkbox for me to know that this is actually real, There's talks about blockchain sort of combined with some cryptography, new cryptography around identities. And we probably have all the technology we need. It's the application of it. And it's really understanding we need to go do this. So that I think is like critically important. Critical infrastructure, IT, OT, operational technology. This is an area where maybe we're going to use things like AI for a lot of the analysis, but you probably want to be pretty deterministic when we're talking about opening and closing a valve. And it's probably not something that we need to go heavy on AI. The analytics and the predictions of where you're going to need energy in certain areas could be something, but this is just an area that is certainly going to have a lot more technology around it. And it's great that we've got also a presentation on this. And I think there's going to be conversations about critical infrastructure and how zero trust can be very important for how we deal with that and manage that. So data governance is, I think, this hugely important initial step in how we are seeing organizations get ready for the future. Data has value, very proprietary data that an organization has. It has the most value the more you can be using it, understanding it, and that means maybe transferring it to other systems and not just having it stored in one very secure area in an organization, but you actually have to use that information and analyze it, and maybe you need to put it in a large language model or other places. And so data governance, the whole life cycle, but it certainly is a key part of how we get started in using technologies that are new, progressive, that are going to really help us in understanding our business, understanding the market we're existing in, and understanding how we grow, we manage risks, how we please our customers. And so it's all in the data. And again, there's more and more synthetic data that we're creating. And so this is just very important. And again, it's a part and parcel of what we're going to be talking about here in these 2 days. Final thoughts for you are that we certainly need to be thinking about zero trust more and more. Like, however you're getting that knowledge, it needs to be part of sort of the daily life of a cybersecurity professional in making sure they are having the right assumptions, because it's this mindset. It's this very skeptical mindset that you need to be in possession of as you analyze new challenges. And maybe after that mindset, you've been able to assume the compromise, you've been able to architect something and implement something that you have a lot of confidence in. And then maybe you can say you do trust it in another sort of mindset. But it's really important that on a daily basis that we have the knowledge we're operating correctly according to zero trust principles. So certainly we encourage you to go to cloudsecurityalliance.org/ZT. It's been there for years and it's always going to be there to make sure that you're availing yourselves of the very best modern practices for how you think about zero trust and how you implement it. Myself, I'm pleased to be a CCZT. I got that certificate not long after we released it. And I'd encourage people to take a look at that program. It's very rich, comprehensive, covers all the different pillars that you need in terms of understanding zero trust, understanding how to implement it, understand it in the real world. With that, I hope you enjoy the event. I hope you enjoyed these 2 days of sessions. Let me know anything that you could see us improving. We'd be happy to go do that. And I'll say goodbye for you for now, and I'll turn it over to our next session. Thank you.